Awaydaysbeer.com, proud to partner with Talking Town. For only $14.99, grab your ITFC Legends Pack from The Beat to Hoppy Robson to Brazil's Best and Pablo's Pal. Whatever you need, whatever you want. ITFC Legends Pack, $14.99 at awaydaysbeer.com. Grab it today. Mass Creations are proud partners of Talking Town. High quality web and software development. From web development to SEO and everything in between, make your vision a reality with Mass Creations. Call 07896 904 571 or visit masscreations.co.uk or email info@masscreations.co.uk. Mass Creations, proud partners of Talking Town. Don't forget, tell them you came from Talking Town to get 10% off. Best Burger in Stone Market, proud partners of Talking Town. Call 01449 680 058 to book a table today. Hey, I think I'm there. Here we go. Hello again, my friends. And you are my friends. I don't know if I was there beforehand, but I couldn't see me. So I'm guessing you couldn't see me either. We're having those gremlins inside the StreamYard studios. I terribly apologize. Here we are. We are live. We are kicking. Just skip ahead. You know, just if you welcome in anyway. We've got a very special guest with us joining us this afternoon. I'm very, very happy Father's Day, first and foremost, to all the fathers watching. Thank you. It's working, I'm told. Right, good. We are up. We are kicking. Don't forget, support to you today is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in the men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for your below-the-waist grooming needs. Get 20% off and free delivery with the code TT at manscaped.com. Invisible Gov says the Cruncher. Absolutely. Welcoming David, Nick, Colin, all here. Right, bringing one of my co-hosts, Matt Phillips. Welcome in. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. And yeah, happy Father's Day to everyone. Did you know during my FA days, I accidentally texted Cyril Regis Happy Father's Day because he was just above my dad in my phone. So I said, Happy Father's Day, Dad. See you at lunchtime. And then I suddenly realised my mistake and text Cyril back and said, oh, sorry about that. He goes, no problem. Have a great lunch.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's a great story. Look at Matt bringing the stories. Could you see me earlier?
No.
Do you know, it's not the first time that's happened with this software recently. They asked me, at the end of every day, they asked me, how did you rate this service? Today, it's going to get a massive grade 0.
You went into a veil of darkness.
I did. It was ridiculous. Anyway, for those watching back, welcome. For those listening back, because it's Father's Day, don't forget you can get us on all good audio platforms. Just search Talking Town ITFC Fan Show Live and you'll find us. I'm looking forward to this one today, Matt. It's Father's Day. We've got a great guest. You've got plans this afternoon, haven't you?
Yeah, it might get as we get towards the end of the show, you might start hearing some noises in the background. I've got in-laws coming round and all sorts. So I've got a little lunch going on. Had a very nice breakfast this morning. Mrs. did me a little fry up. Very rarely do we ever fry up in this house, so that was good. Enjoyed
Oh, I
that.
had one of those as well. Yeah, I had one of those.
And my son got me pajamas that said Grumpy on the front.
Oh, he's got you
Does it want
nailed.
to be Grumpy? Maybe
He's
watching
got.
Portman Ipswich, right?
You could start an argument in a empty room, man. You really could. Right, let's bring in our third host, Kate Riley, award-winning journalist. I bet you never had a start like that on Sky Sports, did you?
No, we had a fair few.
it was like GB News.
No, I've done deadline day. You know, you're sort of flying by the seat of your pants, sort of hoping for the best. I'm not the only one that would say that. You know, it's fantastic, but oh yeah, you can just go with it. So you dealt with it very well. But yeah, happy Father's Day to everyone watching and listening, and to my two co-hosts as well as our guest today.
Cruncher 76 couldn't find PJs with flouncer on them.
Who's rattled the cruncher today?
I don't know. The last few days. Matt, what did you get your lovely guy for Father's Day from your little boy, who's obviously one, so he can't go out shopping himself? So what did you?
I got as I say, I got me pajamas. I did a lot of Joe Wicks during lockdown, so I've got a Joe Wicks cookbook. I've got a walking tour of London. It's called Hidden London. So you go down to like one of the old World War II tube stations. So I'm going to have to wait until restrictions are lifted for that. But yeah, that was me. That was me. I'm pleased. That's a good haul, I think. I'm pleased with that.
Yeah. What about Kaz? What did Kaz get? Walter?
Oh, he got Dad a photo mosaic of pictures of the last 6 months, our Singapore adventure. So it's 4x4 photos. So yeah, that turned out nicely. And then had a nice breakfast. I packed a picnic, and then I took these two out to an island off Singapore. So there they are.
I love his little finger point. He's getting, it's the Alan Shearer type celebration.
That's what I thought. I was like, this boy knows there's a major tournament going on.
He does. Which we obviously will talk to with our guests at some point of the next hour. Didn't go well on Friday. I'm really looking forward to picking his brains and seeing what he felt about Friday and the tournament ahead. Very quickly, what did you make of it, Kate? Well, I've got Matt's thoughts on the day. What have you making of England so far?
So it's quite funny. I woke up to several texts from either British mates in Atlanta, obviously our former home, and obviously English friends back home in Suffolk saying, I hope you didn't stay up for that nonsense. Obviously, kickoff was 2 a.m. our time. And then it's rubbish for us. The rest of the tournament, all the games are through the night. So I just think I'm going to enjoy the build up and then just switch off the radio when I find out the result the next day. So really disappointing, because like even when you think of like all our predictions or like the media sort of building up the game and everyone's saying, oh no, like Scotland doesn't like have anything on us, and we can't even score against them. It's like
Crunch had it like 4 or 5-0 pre-game. He was.
I got 3. I mean, I was like bigging up France, wasn't I, in the show, saying, "Well, they'll go to Hungary and turn them over," and they didn't. So
no, they really.
There
didn't.
we go.
They really
Look at
didn't.
Spain.
Absolutely.
Up trees, are they?
Over the last couple of days, stories have been flying across the WhatsApp group about our guests. So Matt, I'll leave it to you to introduce who we got coming on, and I'll bring him on.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a member of the crazy gang, played for England in the Umbro Cup, so played against Brazil, played for Spurs, played for Liverpool. Little
Wore white
appearances
suits at Wembley.
Yeah, some appearances for Ipswich. It's John Scales, everybody.
Here he is, John. Welcome in.
Hi, John.
Hey, afternoon. How you doing? I'm good, thanks.
We're good. Father's Day in your house, I feel we were obviously having a quick discussion. Isn't going so well. Tell the guys and girls at home how Father's Day in the Scales household has gone.
Well, I'm just getting messaged at the moment saying, where's this, where's that? Haven't had a cup of tea made for me yet. No card, no nothing. I mean, yesterday she plays for AFC Wimbledon under 12. So yesterday was sort of season wrap up, awards and everything else. She got most improved player, so she's there proud. And then the coach said, "Oh, the girls will play some games." So off they went and played softball, rounders, cricket, whatever, football. And then of course the dads have got to get involved. So, of course, I'm out there, super competitive, all of us, the dads, as you know. Some mums were there as well. So I batted the ball, and she's on the 4th base, and I'm determined to get around her. So I go flying round, and it's wet, soaking wet floor, grass is, it's quite wet here. Anyway, the ball's coming over to the 4th base, I'm running. I'm now between third and fourth, heading towards the finish line to get my rounder. Willow's in the way. I see the ball come over my head, turn around, and she's there. Collide into each other. So now I'm off. Now I'm in the doghouse. The day before, I'm going to get all the presents and everything else, and no sign of anything.
Do the other parents know your pedigree, John?
They do. Yeah, they do. They give me a hard time. So yeah. But
I'm glad my son's not at school with your daughters. I hate that.
Oh, the pressure's on her. Yeah, bless her. The other one keeps well out of the way. She's in athletics and high jump and all the rest of it. So she was sensible. She kept well out of football. But Willow, bless her, yeah, she's in the firing line every day.
Bit of competitive dad syndrome there, John. Trying to get that home run.
I was all right, and then I don't know what, something just possessed me as I was on the way round, and it's like just something kicked in, and everybody looked at me like, "Oh my God, what have you done to your daughter? What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Sorry."
That pro athlete in you kicked in, and that desire to win. You never lose it.
Shouldn't be. I should have left it behind here.
How many times do you get asked about those white suits at Wembley, John?
I know you had to bring that up, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. Just every now and again, once a week, once a day. Yeah.
The Spice Boys.
That was humiliating, wasn't it? And then if you go and win the game and you play well and you strut about the pitch and everything else is fine, you go and lose and it doesn't look good, does it?
Was it the players' idea to have that colour, John, or was it like floated by designers or something?
No, you know what? It was David James, I think, was doing sort of campaign for Armani at the time. I think I was doing sort of Tottenham or something, or Burton's or something. I think I was doing, and he was with Armani. I don't know quite where it all went wrong. Anyway, the idea was that we'd get these great suits, so it all sounded brilliant. Armani suits for the final. Ray-Ban sponsored us. We thought we were going to look absolutely superb. How we ended up with a white suit, I'll never know to this day. But I blame John Barnes as well.
We
didn't have the great style sort of gurus at the time, and
remembered though. Everyone remembers it.
They do, including the opposition, who often say that is the reason why they won. They saw you in those suits, and it.
Oh, I thought you meant my position on the pitch and Cantona scoring the winner, and that's why we lost. Let's not go there.
We're not going to go there, John. Don't worry.
We've only just started the pod. We don't want our guests to walk
off.
Brutal.
I thought you cut me off before we'd started at the beginning. I was like, where is it? That's it. It's not looking good. It wasn't looking good.
It wasn't. I was talking, and I wasn't sure if they could hear me, see me. Because I couldn't see anything but a black screen.
You're just hitting every button going, were you?
I was panicking, John. I was F12 on it. I was F12. Over The Simpsons, I was F12 in that button hundreds of times. You've seen a lot of changes in football. Let's kick it off with what you're doing at the moment with Fair Game. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes since you first came into the game and left the game, and then there's all the money coming in and everything else. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with Fair Game, their principles, their core, their values, and what it is you're trying to achieve.
You know, I was asked by a friend of mine who's on the member of the Dons Trust, who own AFC Wimbledon. And, you know, I've always been in and around the club and helping out. And, you know, for the last 20 years since they were reborn, since the move and everything else. So he said, look, we're making this great campaign, this sort of movement within football, Fair Game. We want to get like-minded football clubs together. We want to, you know, change football for the better. Obviously, it was all born out of the Super League. You know, the furor around that. You know, we've talked about this for 20 years, 30 years, a breakaway league, and, you know, would it happen? When would it happen? You know, would they be stupid enough to do it? And yes, they were, and they tried it. And, you know, the backlash that we saw from the supporters, you know, it's always the supporters that sort of step in, isn't it? And you know, are the first in the front line to sort of say, you know, enough's enough. Then we had Sky and Gary Neville and all that reaction. But it's been bubbling away for years. So, you know, the experts we've got, the thing about Fair Game is we've got an incredible panel of experts, sustainability experts, finance experts, governance experts, community experts. So I think we're heading towards 50 people around the team. And what we're doing is we're working on behalf of like-minded football league clubs. And, you know, AFC and Newport and Carlisle and you know, Cambridge and, you know, all the likes, you know, coming together. Luton, great club, you know, great philosophy outlook on the thing, and working with the supporters trusts. And it's just, it's really looking at the same old principles that we've talked about before: sustainability. Financial regulation is one of the key things. It's obvious that the FA haven't been able to regulate the game properly, or the sports authority, the football authorities. Something has to happen. Something's got to give, and we think an independent regulator is the only way forward, and that has to be brought in by the government. So we're getting MPs to support us. We're getting them on board. We're launching at Westminster on the 1st of July. And really what we're going to propose is those sort of solutions to a lot of those issues around football. And that's where I think we're different. We've got these panels of experts and great people around to provide us solutions on behalf of the clubs. We've had 4 workshops and gone through every detail of the community engagement, what's important for football clubs and fans. It's the community aspect, and of course it's the financial importance and the ambition of clubs to go as far as they can. But the balance is completely skewed the wrong way right now, as we all know. So the game can be sustainable. The amount of money in the game is so great. We've got to ban parachute payments that distort the championship. An independent regulator that makes sure that the clubs are compliant with being able to run a sustainable club, and give fans the rights that they have as a sort of a community asset. They're custodians of the game. They're not just there to make a profit or be reckless and put the club in jeopardy. And so we're coming up with those solutions, and for me it's a huge privilege to be involved, because these are obviously clubs that are like-minded. They're not the big 6. They're not the big Premier League clubs. They're clubs that, when you talk to them, and that's been the great thing for me. I haven't really understood maybe a modern day football league club and the importance that they hold within a community and the fans and how they engage with them. And as an ex-player, what's my role? It's sort of been interesting for me to be able to sort of lend my name to this organisation. And as a player, player salary caps, we had the issue with the PFA saying no to salary caps, which I sort of on principle agreed. You can't just put a flat cap on a player's salary in this day and age for employment and legal reasons and all the rest of it. And yet the game needs some form of cost management system for the clubs to make sure that they are sustainable. So an independent regulator has to step in here, you feel. So real privilege for me to be part of this and sort of lending my name and my weight behind all these clubs. So we've got a great movement going. It's really gathered momentum now.
Yeah, every time I look at the website, it really is. Sorry, Matt, go on ahead.
I was going to say, it's a great thing, John, because I don't think people realise that the preservation of our game and the Football League in this country and filtering down into the non-league is so unique, isn't it? It's such a unique model in England. Like, they haven't got that in Germany. They haven't got that in France, Italy. The actual pyramid of English football is just like, it's a unique model, isn't it? It needs preserving. And, what you're talking about there is ticking those boxes to preserve it for future generations.
It is. And, we've even talked about a licensing model and talked about the crown jewels of a club. What is it? The badge and the stadium and the pitch and even the nickname and all those things. What's sacrosanct to sort of fans that you can sort of protect and use as that custodianship and a sort of a license, all sorts of things we're looking at. And, we'll present our initial findings on the 1st of July. And then we've worked with Tracy Crouch's review. We had a great chat with her in the panel last week. Alison McGovern, the Shadow Sports Minister, we spoke to the week before. So, and we're talking to MPs next week. So they're all sort of, they understand the importance, as you say. The pyramid is sacrosanct to English football. Treat it with disdain at your peril, sort of thing. People don't realise. I spoke to a friend of mine the other day in Italy, and a senior guy in Italian football, and close to sort of FIFA and UEFA, and with the Italian clubs and Spanish clubs, and you've got to be careful because it's sort of more vulnerable than I think people realise, the actual pyramid and European football and world football. You've got the likes of Barcelona who are effectively bust, Real Madrid effectively bust. You've got, PSG maybe and Bayern, okay, but the English clubs are running away. But in Germany, you've also got the great Fano model, but Bayern have run away with the title for 9 years, haven't they? So it's in a perilous state, I think, football. And I think everybody's realised enough is enough now. We've got to step in. We've had these discussions for going back to the 60s. Some of these academics were talking to me and saying, this goes back to the late 60s when they were looking at the governance of football. We looked at it in the 90s, the 2000s, and nothing's ever changed. So you feel like there's a sort of a real will between football now to say enough is enough. We've got to make a change, and I think that's where we're different as an organisation, looking at the whole picture and coming up with workable solutions that can be sort of adopted by the Football League and put in, and the National League and the leagues below, because they're an essential part of the pyramid. So we've got 1 or 2 National League teams. They're facing an even bigger crisis in the lower reaches of football.
They are, yeah, and you've got a lot of England players in the squad are EFL, can trace their roots back to EFL. You've got Championship have got more players at this year's Euros than the top league in France, the top league in Holland. So that's England's second tier. Yeah, it's got 31 players from England's second tier at Euros 2020.
Yeah,
amazing for a second tier of any country, but we don't give enough respect. What I found surprising, guys and John, distributed amongst the EFL and given back and spread out, that goes back to the top table for the rich to get richer. So you're distorting one league for a season and then you're not even rewarding them in the process. How does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense, and that's something that's really been identified. Even looking at the creditors rule as well. We won't dwell on that, but the parachute payments distort the Championship, which create inflation. I can't believe that players don't get a reduction in salary when they get relegated. You sort of, and along with the clubs, you're rewarding failure in many ways, or and it's and this parachute payment that then the other Championship clubs are trying to desperately sort of compete with. So they're throwing sort of more money at the problem recklessly, and you've got this distorted issue. And you're right, when the clubs then get re-promoted, they're 2 times more likely to get promoted back into the Premier League. So again, it's you talk about fairness, and we're called fair game. We want a fairer game. We want fairer distribution. We want fairer rules. We want fairer compliance. I mean, it's not rocket science. They're obvious things, and yet the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And we're not just trying to. I think that the lower clubs aren't just saying we just want more of the money. We just you're greedy. It's actually saying, look, you nurture the pyramid. You nurture these clubs. You understand that collectively we're for the good of the game. And, what's to say that the fans of Ipswich are any less important than the fans of Manchester United, for example, just because there's 100, 200, 1,000 times more, just because the numbers stack up, it should be nurtured and realised that a lot of the talent that comes through into the top level of the game comes through the pyramid. And the parachute payments are a classic example of the stupidity, really, of football and how poorly thought through that process is.
John, do you feel, obviously this is an Ipswich Town podcast, and obviously with your history with the town and also your involvement in what you're doing now, do you feel as though those parachute payments are somewhat at fault for Ipswich being in League One right now?
Yeah, I think they are to some degree. I think it's just the pressure that clubs are under when they get relegated and they come back down into the Championship. They go down into League One. It's just this relentless pressure cooker of trying to keep up with everybody else and not quite knowing. And even when we look at the reporting of clubs, it's all so secretive. And yet there's certain disclosure at the sort of league level, and the competition is about signing players. How much is the budgets for the clubs? The parachute payments, as I said, they distort the competition at that level, and I think clubs then get themselves into all sorts of difficulties. And when they run into difficulties, the finances are stretched and strained, and then players are moving and the squad becomes unbalanced, and clubs very quickly get into a real problem, like Ipswich has found themselves.
Sadly so. You mentioned the German league there. Obviously, Sancho has come in for a lot of discussion over the last couple of days following England's not so great. We'll get your thoughts on that. But do you think playing in Germany currently is the reason why we've not seen Sancho yet? Because of the reason there is only 1 or 2 top clubs in Germany. So managers like Southgate are looking at stats like Sancho's incredible run and weighing it against England football. Or what's your thinking as an ex-pro behind the reasons behind no minutes yet? For Sancho?
I mean, the only thing I can think about is that maybe maybe he thinks that Sancho isn't around the English game and doesn't see the other lads as often as they do, or mixes with them in the same way. Maybe that they have that familiarity of playing in the Premier League week in, week out together. Because his stats, as you say, and his form has been sensational. He's playing in one of the great teams in Europe. You know, they're so good, and his form's good. So, look, you know, Foden's had an exceptional season. You know, Sterling hasn't really let England down. You know, he's had a tough time at City with the sort of scrutiny he's been under. But it's a balance, and it's going with, you know, maybe Sancho and Foden, or, you know, Grealish. You know, that they haven't got a huge amount of experience at this level of competition level. Sterling maybe has and gets the nod. And so it's a balance, and it's difficult for Southgate to get the right balance. But I think Sancho will have an opportunity, like Jude Bellingham, exactly the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's a phenomenal talent. You know, he's young, but you know, for me, you know, we'll come on to the game in a minute. But, you know, personally, I'd love to see Grealish playing a sort of a number 10 role in and around Kane. I think the way that they've set up with the two wider players hasn't really suited Kane. And for me, as the pivotal front man, you've got to put your attacking intent around what's right for him, that gets the best out of him, rather than sort of what system you know, accommodates players.
Yeah, Kane is one that we've spoken about a lot over the weekend. We had a show on Friday, a live show about the game, and we reacted to it. And
sorry to bring it up again then.
No, that's exactly what we want to talk about, because he is our top. When he scores, we will win games. And a lot of pundits have said, without him scoring goals, you're not going to go far in this tournament, which is very true. How do you get the most out of Harry Kane? Because someone said he looks leggy. Is it a tactical issue? For you, as an ex-pro watching the games as you have done, what are you seeing, and what do you think is the reason why Harry Kane's tournament hasn't started yet?
You know, for me, I think it's wrong to look at individual performances, because I think you've got to look at the team dynamics overall. And I think, you know, Scotland's a difficult game because they're up for the fight. They're up for the game. They're going to be difficult to break down. They've got 5 at the back, etc. For me, it's much more about the intent of the team. And for me, I would have played at a higher intensity for the first half hour, and I'd have really pushed forward. I'd have pushed the fullbacks on. Personally, I'd have played with 3 at the back, and pushed the 2 fullbacks on. I think Phillips and Rice, it was all too defensive a little bit. And we sat in there and we invited pressure on, instead of being on the sort of front foot and getting the best out of Kane, where you've got support much quicker to him. And maybe, like I said to, you know, Grealish in that central advanced role, that would have suited him better. You know, he's coming looking for the ball, whereas Grealish would have picked it up, gone for the runs, which he's the one that can burst through running with the ball. You know, Foden and Sterling great on the wider flanks, but I think it needs sort of Grealish in those areas where he can burst through, have the little give and goes, which is what Kane loves to do with Son. So you've got to look at that combination work that has been underpinned Kane's game. It's not just a lone striker; it's actually having a double act with a partner like Son, where they've just dovetailed brilliantly. So surely you look at that, and you're on the front foot more. And then you can, you know, if you can pressurize a game and dictate and manage the game better in that sense, you're going to get that naturally as a byproduct. You're going to get Kane involved in the game more. You know, I saw a stat. What did he touch the ball 19 times or something in the game? You know, I don't think he was involved enough. So you sit back, and then naturally you're going to look lethargic, because you're spending so vast parts of the game not in the game, and that's difficult for a striker, I think.
Oh, definitely, absolutely,
especially when it's just one up front, isn't it? Do you think Gareth is too conservative as a coach, John? Certainly in terms of maybe the group stages, where you don't want to be going out early doors, do you? But do you think? Well,
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, look, who am I to say? I haven't managed at that level. You know, none of us have. But you think, you know, from my perspective, you go into tournaments. Surely you've got to get momentum quickly, and you've got to sustain momentum and build momentum through a tournament, and you can't start, you know, trying to navigate your way through and pick a game here and think a draw will do us there. For me, it's better to get on the front foot. You're going to play 5-6 games maximum in it. You've got to get through the groups. Yes, you've got to navigate those. You've got to be smart, obviously, but, you know, get some momentum. And you're also here to raise the hopes of a nation, you know, so those expectations are great. The pressure is on, but that's why you're here. That's why you're in it. And I just like to see it a little bit more adventurous, a little more positive, a little bit more gaining momentum. Because I think now after the Scotland game, it's raised sort of from the brilliant first game and the great win. The momentum, the rug's been pulled from under the feet. Now there's a load of question marks. So you'd have been better getting on the front foot, winning the game, or at least with that real attacking intent and building momentum through the tournament. We've got the talent on the bench as well. It's not like it's a shallow squad where in the past you've sort of said, God, we need to keep this 11 together. I think we've got great depth on the bench, and therefore, if you can, as a player, it's easier to work really hard in the first 30 minutes. And then, I mean, you can't predict you're going to be 2 up and then you can cruise through the game. But in a way, you sort of can, because you've got them on the front foot. You're managing the game. You're dictating the game, and then you can bring on players, and you can manage the game better. And therefore, the energy in reserves, because you're dominating the way the game is going, it's a lot less tiring. If you're always sort of at 0-0 and you think, God, 1 goal and we can lose, the tension and the pressure and the emotional sort of tiredness that's gained from those sorts of games makes you leggy. So it's sort of defeating the object of it. So I would like to see us much more positive, much more building momentum through the tournament. And I think you've just got to do that each and every game, and not worry too about the next game and saving legs and all this stuff. We've got a great bench. We've got a great squad of players there.
Yeah,
we're not playing for second place in the group, are we, John?
Well, again, you can't be too clever in these situations. I mean, we're not that good to sort of have that ability or arrogance. I don't think anybody is, any team. You look at the teams, and I know obviously France and Germany and Portugal are a tough group, and you look at Italy. Italy are playing with a great sort of, they're strong at the back, and they've got that brilliant, attacking flair, and they look a really great balanced team. But no, I don't think anybody can really sort of be that clever to navigate their way through games. It's just not possible. I think you've got to just worry about yourself, get qualified, hopefully with 6 points in the first 2 games, and then you can relax and try something else in the tournament situation.
Yeah, I think as fans, it's so up and down, isn't it? I mean, I was writing Germany off the other day. Full time against Portugal yesterday, I was going, they could win it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel like, do you know what I mean? It's madness. But I do feel like probably, had the results been the other way around for England, we'd be more optimistic. So we'd drawn with Croatia, for example. The media has said they were runners up at the last World Cup. That's a good result. Then you beat Scotland, and then you're going into the Czech Republic game thinking, well, probably going to finish top of the group or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but you'd have gathered momentum then, wouldn't you? You'd have felt like you'd been on the upwardly mobile. Now we sort of think we started, and then we've sort of just dipped. And which way is it going to go in that Czech game?
Yeah. It's a big game on Tuesday. It really is. I agree. It's momentum, as people have said in the chat. It's about Euro '96, all about that momentum and everything else like that. Colin asks, what's it like to pull on the iconic shirt? What is it actually like when you put on that iconic England top for the first time, John?
I thought he was talking about the Ipswich shirt. The England shirt is it's great. It is. I mean, I always dreamt of playing for Liverpool, and pulling on the Liverpool shirt and then tapping the this is Anfield sign. Brought goosebumps to me. But the pride you feel playing for your country is something different. It's a sort of a pride of representing your country is the pinnacle of any sportsman's.
It's a duty,
it's different. Duty. Exactly, and it's different, and so you feel a different sort of burden of expectation because you've got your duty and you're representing your country. Club football's very different, and you sort of can't put your finger on it exactly what it is, but you're sort of on national duty when you're out there. So it's a great feeling. It's a unique feeling.
Did you feel like you were in the running to go to Euro '96, John? Considering you played that Umbro Cup in '95, which was kind of the warm up thing, wasn't it, for a year later? Did you feel like you was in the running for selection?
Yeah, absolutely. I was playing well. I was top form. I had 1 or 2 injuries, which was my problem, and it hampered. I had to pull out of a couple of squads at critical times, and I just didn't get that sort of run and time in the team to establish myself. But around that time with Venables and then Hoddle, and I was in and around the squad and had a great chance, but it didn't happen for me. So that was a frustration. And I played because I played the Umbro Cup in '95, and then I played Le Tournoi before France '98. So I was in and around that whole team, and look, I'm blessed to have played three times for England. But you can't help but look back frustrated and unfulfilled to some degree. That's just the nature of how it pans out. But yeah, you look back at those times and you think, could I have done this, or could you have done something differently?
Is it difficult to watch a tournament thinking I could have been there? Because for example, I would probably have taken Patrick Bamford in this squad if I'd been the manager. I think he's had a good season at Leeds. Now he's watching it at home, and you was obviously in those shoes as well, thinking, I could have been out there in that Germany semi-final.
Of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. And you sit there, and it's that. Football's a short career, and international football opportunities is maybe a shorter career even. You've maybe got this sort of 6-year window maybe when you're around that time. I mean, I left Wimbledon, remember, when I was 27, 28 and went to Liverpool. So even then, when I was then breaking into the team, the clock's ticking and your opportunities are getting less. So you want to establish yourself in there, and you do look on when you're not in the squad with envy, yeah.
You mentioned Liverpool there. Cruncher asks, whatever happened to J1 Red, John?
No. I mentioned that the other day to somebody. Yeah, just that it's just not me. I just didn't feel right. Just driving around in personalised number plates and flash cars.
Yeah, John, I read an interview with you several years ago, and and talking to you now, you said that you sort of never really felt yourself with all of that. When was it in your career that you sort of started feeling your own in your own skin?
I think probably the day I retired, if I'm honest. Well, I love playing football. I had a great time. The clubs that I were at, the great bunch of lads, wherever I was, from Leeds and the apprentices and in the early days all the way to Bristol Rovers, my first professional club. Wimbledon was just made me the player I was. Great bunch of lads. Liverpool and Spurs and Ipswich equally, just dressing room's a dressing room wherever you are. But there was just, for whatever reason, it was, I was always my worst critic. So I was very inward looking at my performances, never satisfied, which is what drove me on to always want to be better and better. Even when I was Ipswich, I was never satisfied. I didn't play many games there, but I still wanted to improve and get better. But ultimately, I think you live in a bubble. You can't escape the fact that you live in a bubble. You're put on a pedestal, and they're your choices. You've got to manage your career and everything else. But undoubtedly, I didn't feel 100% comfortable with it at times, and at times, of course, I love being on the pitch. I just wanted to go out and play football. So yeah, interesting days.
I really like that Crazy Gang story. I always think if I hadn't been an Ipswich fan, I could have warmed to them. It was such a mismatch of characters, wasn't it? And got success by beating Liverpool in the FA Cup. I always think Harry Bassett was the manager of that, was it? It was Bobby Gould was the FA Cup final manager. But
yeah, Bobby was my manager at Bristol. Hey?
Oh, was it? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then when he got the job after Harry, he brought me with him to Wimbledon. So, and then of course he brought Don Howe in, the great Arsenal coach. Yeah, and Don was brilliant. He really was. He really made me, because I when I was at Leeds, I was a striker and a winger. Then I went to full back at Bristol Rovers, and then came really to replace Nigel Winterburn when he went to Arsenal. So, and then it was only after the cup final the next season when Andy Thorne moved on that I moved into as a centre half. By which time I'd learned so much from Don Howe. I mean, he was brilliant. The beauty of Wimbledon was we played unbelievably hard, off the pitch, all the stories and antics and everything else. But we worked unbelievably hard on the pitch. If you didn't, it was the days where you got dug out if you didn't pull your weight on the pitch. And that dressing room after the game, or the team meeting on the Monday morning, you were dug out if you hadn't pulled your weight. And it was sort of self-regulated itself, Wimbledon. It was just an amazing place to be, to learn the game and to be pinned up against the wall if you didn't, do your job, and, in a good way, because the next time you're having a drink and having a laugh, and there was no grudges. It was just that sort of, that respect. It boiled over sometimes. I mean, I saw some things that happened at Wimbledon that just totally inappropriate in this day and age, but it was done in a way that you just brushed yourself down and got on with it afterwards. Yeah. And it was, an amazing place to be. Yeah, Band of Brothers. Yeah, and complete, disparate group of personalities. Yeah.
I guess. Sorry. was going to say, I guess another band of brothers. Who were the Spice Boys at Ipswich?
Oh, Ipswich. I mean, I think Marcus Stewart was the sort of, one of the. He was a great character.
My all-time crush. Sorry, John.
How'd you get this off? Yeah. Oh, you left me speechless now.
Yeah, sorry, now I'm blushing.
Hey, no, Marcus Stewart was great. Herman Haridason. Do you remember Herman?
Yeah.
He came in as well. I was just looking actually. George spent some money that season, 2000. Nothing on me, obviously.
Well, I think Herman was brought to replace you because I think you got injured in pre-season, if my memory's right. And then
this was it. I was actually going to retire at Spurs. It was the last season at Spurs, and I'd had a calf injuries and I'd had surgery, and I was going to retire. And George said, "Look, come down. It was a free transfer. Come down. We need some experience around the dressing room." I was going to sign for Portsmouth actually for 2 years, but I wanted to play at the highest level and prove that I'd got over the injury. So I went there, and then you're right, Herman. I think signed from Wimbledon for about 5 million or something.
Yeah.
And we were roommates. He was a great lad. He was good fun, and a good player. But there were a couple of other players that they signed as well. A few from Ajax, weren't there? I think two or three from Ajax.
Younger players.
Martin Reusser, was it? Martin
Reusser, yeah.
A couple of young lads.
Yeah.
They you know what? Even though they'd spent a lot of money that season, it was the old boys that did the trick. Matty Holland, was just brilliant, a great captain in midfield and just bossed it. Marcus Stewart.
You must have got on with Holland. I feel like speaking to you and having spoken
100%.
to Matt at length in the past, both professionally and personally, I feel like the two of you perhaps had a meeting of minds.
Yeah, we did. We did. I mean, it was just all over. Jim Magilton was great. Even the likes of Jamie Clapham. We had a great time, and it was a great dressing room. They were a great bunch of lads. Me and Matt got on really well. I really had a huge amount of respect for him, and his whole approach to the game and to the team and leadership was superb. And it's just that unit that had come up and gone on this journey with George Burley, and the way that he managed it, and the drills and the discipline and the camaraderie and the closeness of that group. It didn't surprise me that they did so well.
Again, a band of brothers, isn't it? But in a different style to Wimbledon, I suppose.
Yeah, very different. I mean, we lumped it and pretty cultured at Ipswich. No, it was not quite like that, but George got the team really ticking and playing some great football. We passed the ball around, and I was surprised how good that group of players were when I got there. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and just first day in training, you could see that the quality was there, and George really wanted everybody technically to be on their game, have the confidence to play out from the back and pass the ball about, and it suited everybody just perfectly with the quality of the players that we had. I got injured, you're right, with Fiorentina. I remember it. We played Fiorentina the last warm-up game, and of course the first game was Spurs away, and I was desperate to play against Spurs. I really was desperate to play and prove that, were you? And I was also, I needed to navigate my way through training, and of course, leading up to the season, I had the arrangement with the club and with George, and I go softly, and wrap myself up in cotton wool to a degree, got myself really fit, and then of course you get out on the pitch and your head just is saying one thing and your body's doing another, and I broke down in the game because I pushed myself in pre-season so much. I was so excited to be back playing, and then blew it, and then from then on the team did so well, couldn't really get back in the team, and
Titus came through, didn't he? He played in that game at White Hart Lane.
Yeah. Titus did brilliantly.
Yeah.
In my memory, you're injured. I think you get injured right in front of me as a fan. I'm watching the game, Portman Road, and that's my one and sadly only memory of yourself in a blue shirt. Because I've watched you throughout the career, Liverpool, Tottenham, all those, and obviously crazy gang as Matt's mentioned earlier. But so I was really looking forward to seeing what you brought to Ipswich. Now, Burley had a bit of a history. Because you were brought in, as you say, for experience to replace a colossal in Tony Mowbray. he said a bit of history in calling up players and bringing them. What was he selling, Pam? What did Bert George say to you to say, don't sign for Portsmouth for 2 years, come to Portman Road, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it?
I think, when you, as a player, it's the heritage and history of Ipswich. I mean, it was obviously, years before that they had the European glory and everything else. It was just, I don't know, just even David Sheepshanks around the place, the way that they were running the club, the players, the atmosphere that I instantly got, the fact of George, how clear he was on what he wanted to achieve and how he was going about it. The fact they were obviously in the top flight. I grew up in Norfolk as well, so not too far from Norwich, funny enough, from a place called Beccles. I shouldn't say that word, but sorry, you mentioned it before, so I thought it was allowed. But my dad was down that way, and had family, and I don't know, I've always known that area of East Anglia, so there's sort of an affinity. So I felt very natural about going out and playing at Ipswich. Yeah, but then Mark Venus, John McGreal, yeah, but they did brilliantly. I don't think anybody realised they would play so well at the highest level. Yeah. And Jamie obviously on the left. I mean, it was just, they did a great job.
What was it like being a part of that dressing room as that journey sort of unfolded the way it did? It
was brilliant. Yeah, it was a great time. A great year of football. Even though I was on the sidelines and not playing, I actually really enjoyed being around that dressing room and learning a lot from George, from the lads, and being in and around just a great atmosphere and great energy, and such a professional sort of setup at the time. Personally, of course, it's frustrating. Like you say, when you're not in an England squad and you're watching on from the sidelines. When I was at Spurs and playing and then injured, I mean, it is the worst thing for any player. It's horrible watching on from the stands or watching on from the sidelines. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, but you're picking up your wages." You know what? Once you put that to bed, you're a player. You want to play football, and looking on from the sidelines is just, it's miserable. You ask any player if they're satisfied not playing. Not one. Every player wants to play, of course. So it was tough watching on, but equally it was great being in and around that club at that time.
Because the aspiration of getting to the Champions League was real, wasn't it? Right up until the end of the season, really. Pushing for that fourth place was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it was Arsenal, who got it in the end. I think coming fifth was really disappointing because we've been in the top three for about the last month or something. I think we lost at Charlton or something. Was it Charlton? I think we lost it. And then it suddenly put us outside the top three and we got UEFA Cup football. But we had that chance of getting into the European Cup would have been phenomenal. So that was a big disappointment, yeah.
At what point, personally, did you decide my time has come? I'm going to, because at the end of that season you retired, didn't you? There was that season that at the end of it you retired. So at what point did you decide that you weren't going to perhaps look for another club, step down a division for a year or two? At what point did you personally decide? Was it towards the end of the season, midway through?
It was towards the end of the season because I then went to the club and said, look, after Christmas, and said, look, I'm struggling here. It's just I feel dreadful. You're paying me and I'm not playing, and I've got the struggles. I don't feel comfortable in that situation. I left a couple of months early. I think effectively we cancelled the contract and whatever else because I just didn't feel comfortable. And at that point, I just knew I was fighting a losing battle. And I was waiting to go into beach soccer. Beach soccer were waiting for me.
How nice.
A mate of mine was running beach soccer, and I then ended up playing, didn't I, the year later?
You did.
You won't know that. You did. But that certainly wasn't the reason why I was coming out of the game. I just knew that my injuries meant that I couldn't do the job I was being paid a lot of money to do, and it just wasn't fair on any club to be for me to keep on trying to sort of steal.
An honourable thing for you to do, because many people, or some people, would. A couple of questions we got from the chat.
I kept thinking afterwards I was going to make a comeback for up until about last year. You still think in your mind, you're playing a charity match, you think, oh, I'm quite good here, and I've got over the, I feel I can go out running on the common and do all the stuff. So your mind still thinks you can make a comeback. Yeah,
absolutely. How good was George? It's a question I've got in the chat the most.
George was brilliant. He was a great coach. George was a great dynamic coach. It's sort of just focused on really knowing what how he wanted his team to play, drilling the team exactly how he wanted to teach them and coach them, and what sort of system he wanted to play. He was great. I suppose it's just a natural cycle that we all know in football, is that ultimately a manager is going to get sacked. There comes a point at which the message isn't heard, and it was after that year later, I suppose, that it unraveled, and it just sort of lost the dressing room somewhat, because it had naturally had its sort of cycle, and that was a shame. It was disappointing, but whatever it was, once you've lost the dressing room, it's gone. But up to that point, he was a phenomenal manager for Ipswich. Did a brilliant job. He had a good group of players who responded well to him, who listened, who learned so much from him, and owe so much to him for how he developed Titus Brand. One of them that came through his tutelage and did brilliantly. He was a great coach, and it was disappointing how quickly it unravelled for me. I mean, looking on sort of almost once I left from afar, and I suppose you'll remember those days sort of better than me. And what happened after that, it was disappointing. It was messy, wasn't it?
Sadly was. Callie asks, was he a better coach or a better man manager as a George?
A better coach, I would say.
Many have said that.
Only because from the man management, he was brilliant at that time. And I'm being ultra critical by saying, the man management, because it went wrong. It's easy in hindsight to sort of say it went wrong. He was a great man manager when he was the coach, but I would say he was an exceptional coach first and foremost. And maybe those man management skills weren't able to sustain him, maybe to get it back on track when it did have that wobble. I mean, it's difficult to say, but a really good coach. And I've had coaches like that in the past. I've had better man managers who have done brilliantly. Bobby Gould was a brilliant man manager of that team, and not a great coach, but he understood that and he brought Don Howe in. So, but you see so many managers who are insecure, who bring in a poor coach alongside them, even though they really need a good coach, because they see it almost as a threat, something to undermine their. So I think that's where great people running good, successful football clubs understand the good things they're good at and the things they're not so good at, and bring in quality that isn't a threat. It's actually going to build them up and enhance them. And that's what George did.
Yeah. A question or a debate we've had raging at Talking Town Towers has been Cantona or Ginola. Which one is the better player for you, John? Eric Cantona or David Ginola?
Well, Ginola's my teammate, so I mean that's difficult, isn't it?
So I'm hoping to score the easy win here. That's what I'm hoping, because I've said Ginola, and Crunchy, who's not on the show today, with his
Cantona, Cantona for me is the better. Cantona, sorry, but Cantona is one of the all-time greats for the catalyst that he was for Manchester United, and the influence he had on that team and that group of English talent. I would say that he had a much bigger impact than David had. I mean, his hair aside and L'Oreal sales and everything else, but David was a great guy. We went and played golf. Great player. Genius on the wing, and just a brilliant player. But I would say Cantona was on a different level for what he achieved in the game and the influence he had, and playing at the very, very highest level. I think people forget. To be successful with a big club doesn't come easy. You've got to be able to fit into a big club, and you can be all the talent in the world at that layer below. But once you go into the top clubs of Liverpool and Manchester United and Chelsea and Man City, and to be able to perform in that environment takes a certain personality, and that's what defines when people win European Cups, Champions Leagues, World Cups. Is bringing their game to that level consistently, and Cantona did that. Sorry,
it's fine. I conceded a little bit. You mentioned that wall at Wimbledon earlier. It wasn't the same wall you put a fist through, was it, John? Because there's a story going around where you'd rather punch a hole in the wall or something like that.
For doing what? I have punched a wall before. How do you know about that?
Was it at Spurs?
No, it was when I left Liverpool. It was when I left Liverpool. We'd had the white suits. We'd lost the cup final.
Is that why the wall got punched?
No, well, it's sort of indirectly maybe, but no, it was when Roy Evans rang me and said, "Look, we've accepted a bid from Leeds," and I went over to see George Graham at Leeds and had a chat with him. I didn't really want to leave Liverpool, but I sort of got the message that Liverpool had accepted a bid, which I'm sure they got bids for players all the time, and I was in a sort of a bit of a daze that weekend, and I think the frustration that I felt almost I was getting pushed out of the door at Liverpool got to me, and Leeds was great. I'd started at Leeds. That's what, it's my hometown. All my mates are there. I just didn't want to go back full circle to Leeds, and I still felt like I had 5 or 6 years in my career left. So I wanted to not take a step back almost. I felt it was take a step back. And then that's when Spurs called that weekend, after I'd hit the wall. And Spurs seemed a good option. Come back to London. Alan Sugar and everybody at the club, made me feel really welcome. They had great ambitions. Jurgen Klinsmann came back for the second time. Sol was there. We had a great team, but that was an underperforming side, which was frustrating.
Last 5 minutes, guys. Any questions?
Yeah, John. Okay, so obviously about Ipswich's new owners, this American consortium. What advice do you have for maybe the three of us and our viewers and listeners to temper expectations for next season and not get carried away too quickly?
I think it's like it's like any football club these days. You've got to be realistic with where you are. Money dictates so much the budget of the playing team and what can be invested into the team. The sum of all the parts, when they work together well, the supporters and the club and the community work and all those pieces of the jigsaw that fair game is all about, when they all work together seamlessly, it's an amazing way you can go. A club like Ipswich with the heritage and the history, I think counts for a lot for players at that level coming into Ipswich and understanding what it's about. I think the fans play a huge part in that, about the collective effort. But you're right. Ultimately, it's often about the budget that the club's got and how much is going to be invested in the team. And I've got sort of one hat on there as sort of wanting Ipswich to do really well, and one hat with fair game and the compliance with the regulations and how much can be spent and all the rest of it. So you've just got to see, you've got to buy well, you've got to identify talent well, and I think there's so much more talent out there that if you get that right and can attract the right talent and blend that together with all the right ingredients, with good coaching and a good philosophy with the club and everybody pulling in the right direction, then you've got a great chance of doing much better than maybe you thought you would, and as good as you, and not quite as good as you'd ideally dream of and hope for, but somewhere there going upwardly mobile, I think is very possible for Ipswich.
Yeah, and having spoken to the new owners, as we have done on this show, we've had them all on, they really subscribe to the same sort of ethos as the fair game policies. They're all about community, sustainability, aren't they, Matt? So the two still really blend, really well. Anything from yourself, Matt? Because Crunch is saying we need a second, a John Scales part 2 in the near soon.
Well,
and I agree.
Let's finish on a high edge on one of the great Premier League games. What's your memories of the Liverpool 4 Newcastle 3 game?
Colin Moore closing him.
Being involved in that final game, pop out from the back. I tell you what, I talked about the hairs on the back of your neck standing up when you hit the "This is Anfield" sign coming up the stadium. That game will live with me forever. And as soon as you talk about it, you get goosebumps, because I've never played in a game like that. I mean, playing at Anfield is great at the best of times, but that night was just something unique, and it was one of those crazy games where it was just end to end stuff. It was just a great game to be part of. It'd have been dreadful coming out on the losing side, obviously, but to win it in that style, in those circumstances at the end, and the way that the game had been, and the quality on the pitch that day. You look at the two teams; it was just something special. One of my great memories of football was that night at Anfield, and going back ever since, and seeing Anfield when it's rocking on a European night or a great Premier League night. Those games, I'm just incredibly privileged and fortunate to have been on that stage. in front of those fans. A special place to be.
A great game. Sorry, mate, go on.
I was going to say, did Razor play in that game?
Razor played, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say he's like the crazy gang member that never was, I guess.
Yeah, he should have been at Wimbledon, shouldn't he? I mean, I think he was envious of the stories of Wimbledon, and he was desperate to sign there at some point, and he never got there. No, he would have fitted in quite well, I think.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly some of the things you hear about Razor. I was going to say, great game, but as a defender, John, which I was, and you obviously you were, pull your hair out because
you've got to take the gloss off the great night. Yeah,
I'm a defender first and foremost.
No, well, I said earlier, I was my biggest critic. I look back on that game. I was trying to be really positive and have a real sort of. I thought we were finishing on a high note, but you've brought it back down to identify the mistakes. Yeah, okay. I mean, I should have stepped up. I can now go through every bit of that game and say I should have stepped up there. I should. We weren't. I was too deep. Razor was pushed up forward. He was out of position. I blame Razor. Thank you.
I
blame Razor. I watch that game and I say, Razor, run at what you're doing every time. And the keeping
so do I.
As well.
And nobody ever listens to me, but I agree with you. You've got it absolutely spot on.
There you go, John.
Thank you.
We're kindred spirits here, my man. Don't worry. Callie just asked one last question. My two bosses, Amit and Pete, are massive Liverpool fans. Can you give them a shout out, please, John?
No, of course I can. Yeah, of course I can. No, as I said, I was so lucky to play. Liverpool's a great club. It was disappointing with the European Super League, all that stuff, and fans reacted brilliantly to making sure that the game, the Big Six, the Premier League, understand the importance of the pyramid and everything else. But Liverpool fans, I stand shoulder to shoulder with them. They're a great bunch. As across the whole pyramid, football fans get it. They're all the same. They're all a kindred spirit. They all, at whatever level they are, when the chips are down, they're the ones that all come together unanimously, and that's the beauty of the game is the fans. And we've seen it obviously with lockdown, we've seen it with the European Super League. They're a force to be reckoned, and don't mess with the game because the fans are precious, and they've let it be known. And so as much as I'm working on behalf of the clubs, I feel like the fans are right on our shoulders, all working together to protect the game that we all love and cherish.
Absolutely. Look, there's so much more that we could unpack. So please do come, when I invite you again, come back and see us because there's so much more we could discuss and unpack.
Well, you'll pick my game apart probably, yeah. So I'll come back with Matt, and I'll come back with Matt and Kate. I'll come back with, but I think Martin's he was just there, about to probe, wasn't he? And I'm glad we've run out of time.
I was not. No, I was not. I certainly was not. But I promise you, I'll just pay the bills for the next one. And Cruncher can sit in my seat. But it's been a real pleasure, John. It honestly has. Hopefully,
it's been an honour.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure coming on. And wish Ipswich all the best for this season. Next season, I really do. And pleasure to see you all. Lovely. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. For those that are watching, thank you ever so much. And we'll see you all. We'll see you all next week. Don't forget, this show was brought to you in association by Manscaped. Get 20% off with the code TT at manscaped.com. We'll see you all very soon.